Man and Birds, a Christmas Parable by Paul Harvey. It was Christmas Eve, and the man I'm going to talk about wasn't a miser. No, he was decent, generous with his family, integrity in business. But there was one thing he simply couldn't accept. That story about the Incarnation of Christ. That idea that churches proclaim at Christmas, that God became man, descended to earth as a baby, and was born in a manger. He shook his head. It didn't make sense, and he was too honest to pretend to believe him. So that night, as his wife and children were getting ready to go to midnight mass, he said, "I'm sorry, darling, but I'm not going. I'd feel like a hypocrite." She smiled understandingly. "Okay, we'll go. You stay here and wait for us." And they left. The house fell silent. He sat down in the armchair by the fireplace, picked up the newspaper, and began to read. Minutes later, he heard it. A muffled sound, then another one, and another. Thump, thump, thump. At first, he thought someone was throwing snowballs at the window, but when he went to the front door, he saw something different. A flock of birds, small, trembling, huddled together in the snow. They had been caught in the storm. In desperation, they tried to climb through the large panoramic window of the room, seeking shelter. And now they were there, freezing. The man couldn't let them die. He remembered the barn, where the children kept the pony. It would be warm inside, safe. All he had to do was guide the birds there. He quickly put on his coat and galoshes. He walked through the accumulating snow. He flung open the barn doors wide. A bright yellow light came on inside, so that the birds could see the way. But the birds didn't come in. He thought, perhaps food will attract them. He ran back home. He picked up breadcrumbs. She scattered them in the snow, making a clear trail to the open yellow barn door. But to his dismay, the birds ignored the crumbs. They just kept struggling, helpless, miserably, in the snow. Then he tried to grab them with his hands. He couldn't. He tried to shoo them toward the barn, walking around them and waving his arms. But they spread out, in all directions, except into the warm, brightly lit barn. And that's when he realized they were afraid of him. To those birds, he was a strange creature, terrifying, gigantic. He thought, if I could somehow show them that they can trust me, because I don't want to hurt them, I just want to help them. But there was no way. Any movement he made frightened them even more. And then he had a thought. If only I could be a bird. If only I could become one of them. Speak their language, walking among them. So, then I could show you the way. But I would have to be one of them, so that they could see me, listen to me, and to understand. And it was at that exact moment the church bells began to ring. The sound reached him, carried by the icy wind. Ding, dong, ding. The bells announced midnight, the arrival of Christmas. He stood there frozen, listening, the bells ringing the good news. And slowly, he fell to his knees in the snow, because for the first time, he understood. Music grows in his soul. Silent night flooded his heart, and he cried, if God wanted to save humanity, if he wanted to show us the way, without terrifying us, without scaring us, he would have to become one of us, not like thunder, I don't eat fire, not like a distant judge on a throne of clouds, but like a baby, fragile, human, one of us, so that we could see him, listen to him, and to understand. Paul Harvey. And so, man finally understood Christmas, the parable of the birds, a psychological and spiritual analysis, how a Christmas story reveals the archetype of the guide who becomes a hero, The story The Man and the Birds, narrated by Paul Harvey for decades on his Christmas radio programs, is not just a religious parable. It's a complete archetypal journey. And when you understand the three psychological levels of this narrative, the story brand framework, Jungian archetypes, and the symbolism of incarnation, you discover something profound about how real transformation happens. Let's untie her. But here's the twist in Paul Harvey's story. The man thinks he is the guide. He has the solution, the warm barn. He has the plan, breadcrumbs, light, movement. He calls for action, waves his arms, tries to guide the birds, but it fails. Why? Because he's too big, too scary, too different. The birds don't see him as a guide. They see him as a threat. And that's where the central transformation happens. The guide realizes that he needs to become the hero in order to guide. He needs to come down to the level of the birds. You can't save them from above. You can only save them from the inside. And that is the essence of the Incarnation. God did not send a giant angel with a flaming sword to force humanity to follow him. He turned himself into a baby, vulnerable, human, one of us, so that we could trust them, so that we could move on, so that we could understand. The self and the descent. Carl Jung called the process of integrating the psychic totality individuation, the journey toward the self, the central archetype that unites the conscious and unconscious. But there is a paradox. To reach the self, wholeness, you need to descend. You need to delve into what Jung called the shadow, the parts of yourself that have been rejected, hidden, repressed. And you can't do that from above. If you try to fix your shadow with force, with pure logic, with rigid control, it runs away. Just like the birds used to flee from man. The shadow is only integrated when you become intimate with it. When you stoop to her level, when you stop trying to be superior and accept being equal. And this brings us to the deeper concept of the story. Man needed to become a bird, not metaphorically, not symbolically. Literally, in the logic of the parable, he would need to be reborn as a bird to guide them. And that is precisely what the Christ archetype represents in Jung. The self-incarnate, the divine that descends, the conscious mind that becomes unconscious, the guide who becomes a hero, so that the hero can finally trust the guide. The Incarnation as a solution to divine terror. Here is the theological problem that Paul Harvey solves brilliantly. Why doesn't God reveal himself directly? If he exists, why doesn't he appear in the sky with thunder and lightning and say, "I am God, follow me"? The answer to the parable is simple. Because that would terrify us. Just like how man terrorized the birds. He didn't want to hurt them. He wanted to save them. But the difference in scale, in form, in nature, was too great. And the same applies to the relationship between God and humanity. If God appeared in his pure form, whatever that means, we wouldn't be able to process it. It would be like trying to look directly at the sun, or like a bird trying to understand human language. So the solution is not for God to come to us as God. It is God coming to us as we come to him, not as a conqueror, but as a baby, not in the palace, but in the manger, not with power, but with vulnerability. And that, psychologically, is brilliant. Because the only way to trust someone completely different from you, that's when that person becomes similar to you. How to be a guide who transforms if you are a parent, leader, teacher, therapist, coach, content creator. You are the man trying to guide the birds. And if you're failing to connect, to inspire, to transform, perhaps it's because you're trying to steer from above. Here are the mistakes the man made, and that you might be making. offering a solution without understanding the fear. He opened the barn. Correct solution. The light, brightness came on, but the birds didn't come in because they were afraid of him. Lesson: your solution may be perfect, but if you don't understand the other person's fear, it will be ignored. Trying to push the transformation, he tried to shoo them away, waved his arms and ran after them. The result? They fled in all directions. Lesson: forcing change creates resistance. You don't lead by force. You lead by trust. To believe that clarity is enough. He left breadcrumbs, a clear path, but the birds ignored them. Lesson: clarity without intimacy doesn't work. People don't follow plans. They follow people they trust. If you want to guide someone, you first need to become like them, not literally, as the man wished to turn into a bird, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. This means speak their language, not yours. Enter their world. Don't try to bring them into yours immediately. Show vulnerability, not superiority. To be a guide and a hero at the same time. Because the best guide is not the one who has never fallen. He is the one who fell and got back up. And you can say, I know what it's like. I've been there, and I'll show you the way. Paul Harvey ends the story with the man kneeling in the snow, listening to the church bells, finally understanding. He didn't convert through argument. He converted because experience. Because he experienced firsthand the problem that God faced. How do you save someone who is afraid of you? And the answer is always the same. You go down. You empty yourself. You make yourself small. You become one of them. And only then do they move on. This is the true message of Christmas. It's not about gifts. It's not about snow and lights. It's about a God who loved so much. He pretended to be a baby so as not to scare us. He became human so that we could trust him. He made himself weak so that we might become strong. And if you want to transform someone or transform yourself, you need to be willing to go down as well. Because true transformation never happens from the top down. It happens from the inside out. If you enjoyed this story and context, like and share it with someone you love and subscribe to our channel. Here we have many transformative stories that will help you get to know yourself and become a better person. Merry Christmas. May you have the courage to descend your own mountain and to guide others, not as a giant, but as a brother.